Well, back to just AI real quick too. I was thinking you're going to be able to not just say, play me a song from Queen. You're going to be able to say, generate me a song in the style of Queen about a bad cup of coffee or whatever, right? And it'll
Yeah.
create it. And so Pandora and like that whole concept of playing the DNA of musical styles. Now you're going to be able to generate like new musical content, and that's if that's not here, I'd be surprised. But that's going to be coming very soon. It's got to be coming because of what you
I
see right
heard,
now.
I haven't seen it, and it's supposedly on the web somewhere that regenerative AI created a South Park, wrote
Yes,
it, did it, and animated it.
it was good. It
Oh,
was. I
you
mean,
saw it.
I saw some of it. Yeah, it was scary. If that's the real deal, which I believe it was. It was good. It was
Well,
well done.
my son and I were having some good fun, and we said, generate me a musical. We'll call it Pong the Musical, and it's a story. It's a hero's journey based on a square ball that wants to become round, so that he can woo Miss Pac-Man. And we want it in the style of Oklahoma, and it did it.
Wow. I wonder if it drew. Have you ever heard of the book Flatland by?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I wonder if it drew off of that. In some ways. I mean, you don't know where it gets its
you don't
ideas,
know where to
maybe.
get it. No,
But Flatland, remember, was about the ventures of A Square, right? The higher up beings in that world were circles, and like the lower
right?
beings were just lines. You had more dimensions or less dimensions, or based.
That was a fun. I totally forgotten about that, Paul. That was kind of a tech geek story.
Oh, it
It's
was.
like,
I've read it
yeah,
like a couple times in my life. I read it when I was probably like 16 or something like that. And then when I was in college, I was like, I should probably read that again. And
yeah. It was pretty cool.
well, my one question was, and you answered it in terms of the robots that you would like to have do things for yourself, but was if you could design a robot based entirely on your experiences, like Nolan Bushnell's experiences, what would it be like? What would I be seeing if there was a robot here designed in the style of Nolan Bushnell? What would it be doing around the house?
Well,
Maybe you can't answer this.
no, it's a thing where I think that there are. When I think of what I want, I can't divorce myself from thinking about marketplaces and what other things. Like, I believe that there's a huge marketplace for waiters and waitresses in parties passing out hors d'oeuvres and drinks.
Mm-hmm.
All they have to do is they're fetch and carry, but they have to go out and mingle with people and hold a tray. You know, figure all the conventions I've been to, there's probably a marketplace for 100,000 of those kind of things. Every hotel would have a couple, what have you. Um, I think that restaurants are going to have food delivery by robot. Order taking can be very, very simple through a tablet or what have you. I had a company that did that at one time. I was a little early again, but but I think that there's a lot of places where people should be involved in building the future, not maintaining the present.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about, well, for example, if you have autonomous vehicles, containerized packaging. So think about a container that has the address. And just like a packet switch network, it doesn't know how it's going to get there, but it basically is injected into the back or into the side of a taxi or an Uber. And if the package needs to go left and the Uber is turning right, then it deposits it at a corner kiosk and waits for a car that's coming by that's going left. And it picks it up and takes it. And so the packet switch network takes that container and pretty soon it comes to your house. And since it's all basically wasted or, spacey hitchhiking, the cost can be vanishingly small. And all of a sudden you have a delivery mechanism that is safe, secure, and pretty fast.
Yeah, there's another business. That's all doable now. I mean, a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of focusing on, maybe it's the big prize, right? We have 100,000 cars that we want to sell and we want them all to be autonomous. But those applications, that might not be 100,000 cars right away, but there's definitely a business opportunity for that. And maybe that's kind of like the, what's that book by Clayton Christensen, the Innovator's Dilemma. Maybe these big companies aren't doing it because it's not the big prize, but it's something that maybe the smaller companies can do that and make that.
And that's how the smaller companies get to be big companies.
Yeah.
Little companies always have to be in the cracks in the sidewalk.
I've been in a lot of cracks and sidewalks.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah. And kind of on that, though, just kind of jump into entrepreneurship for a little bit, because you wrote a book called Finding the Next Steve Jobs. And it was really great. It was like prescriptive. It was very Zen-like to me. It was like how you should live your life as an entrepreneur. And I guess just in your mind, what makes a good entrepreneur and a world changing, a game changing? Because every entrepreneur wants to change the world. I think, right?
I think there are two or three things that have to happen. An entrepreneur, first of all, has to be optimistic and passionate, and driven. You can't be lazy and be an entrepreneur. If you think you're going to be an entrepreneur because you don't like to have a job, wrong. Because, a lot of times being an entrepreneur is having a job that you don't get paid for, and so you got to kind of come to grips with that.
Certainly not on the hours that you put in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I figured the first year at Atari, I made less than 25 cents an hour, but it paid off ultimately. But you have to have the optimism that you can punch through. The second thing you have to do is you really have to do your homework. And I would never invest in an entrepreneur that when you ask them a question about finance, they say, well, I'll have to talk to my CEO or my CFO. Wrong answer. You've got to be the architect of your financial outcome. Otherwise, you're not going to be making good decisions.
I still have a problem with GAAP accounting, though, so that's a tough one.
Well, any logical human being hates GAAP. I mean, there's so many things that don't make any sense. The biggest one is how they treat options. You get dinged when you grant the options, but if the options go away, you don't get it back. Why? Where did the money go in the first place, and why didn't it come back if it went somewhere?
Right. I guess, is there something in your mind that makes it less likely, and I'm just thinking of the US, but maybe it's worldwide, to have entrepreneurs today that are going to do something really huge and real, like industry changing, or has that just not changed in your opinion?
Well, the U.S. has a really big advantage psychically and culturally. That is, if you fail in Europe, a lot of times you have a stigma as a failure. In the United States, if you fail, they say, "Oh, that was a learning experience. It's probably going to be better this time."
Right.
You know. The second thing is that there is a lot of capital that's available to try things, and they go in with their eyes wide open that a majority of the companies they invest in are going to fail. But the ones that succeed, they make a 10x, 20x return, and that's fine. That it makes it all work. And so those metrics don't really exist in the other countries. Sometimes they try the worst of all worlds, where they have governments try to invest in entrepreneurs.
Well, I won't comment on that. but
Well,
but I think I see what you're saying, though. I mean, the people who should be funding this technology should expect a return on their investment, and they have a vested interest in seeing that outcome. And a lot of the investors that we talk to, I mean, they have some awareness of the space, and the technology, and they've got people on board.
A lot of funding comes from people who've been entrepreneurs and made a success and done an exit, and now they're VCs in their own right.
Yeah.
Family offices.
Yeah, that's right. So, like, what in your opinion, what are there any cultural sort of things that have to happen here to make entrepreneurship something that kids aspire to more? I mean, I've encouraged my own son, think about, when you're doing something, is it worth something to somebody else? And are you interested in it? Because obviously you have to have the passion and the willpower to want to kind of get through the bad times. But I don't see a lot of mainstream or popular TV or whatever shows fostering any interest in people wanting to become entrepreneurs or starting businesses. I've seen a few things, but it's just not a widespread cultural phenomenon that maybe I'm wrong, but I remember there were books from a guy named Horatio Alger about pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. And there's not that today, right? So what needs to happen to kind of
maybe we should write one of those. Or maybe it's this podcast. Maybe one of the threads that we should do is why you should be an entrepreneur.
It is the new media. I mean, it is,
I actually think another gateway drug for entrepreneurship is reading science fiction.
Why is that?
Well, essentially, one of the mindsets that you need as an entrepreneur is to think that today's world is incomplete, that it's not as good as it could be. And therefore, I'm going to try to move it, make the future happen a little bit faster. I think that's kind of a mindset that you do. So, I mean, robots are going to be in the future. So us working on it is going to make that future happen a little bit faster.
Absolutely. Well, I think growing up and watching movies like Star Wars, and robots have always been part of sci-fi, and at least in the last 50 years. I think the first use of the word robot was by some guy, I think it was like
the 1930s movie.
20s or some 30s, a Polish or something.
Black and white,
Yeah. But so I think the 70s and 80s, especially, you really started to see a lot of robots in the sci-fi sense. And I think it's certainly influenced a lot of people who are at least in the space today. I hope you enjoyed the show Driven with me, Paul Perrone, your host. Don't forget to check us out at driven.show on the web. And give us a thumbs up or subscribe here if you like the show. Thank you for listening in. See you soon.